Hello everyone, I am Dr. Manali. I am here to discuss some transplacental infections, that is TORCH. TORCH is a very important chapter related to entrance exams and sometimes it gets very confusing. So in this video I'll be discussing about the infections that in details, like I'll be discussing the findings, I'll be telling some tricks to remember, and I'll also show the image based questions related to this chapter. So let's begin. Before beginning the actual explanation, let me start with basics. TORCH stands for T is Toxoplasma, R is Rubella, C is Cytomegalovirus, H is herpes, and O stands for other. Other as in other viruses or infections transmitted transplacentally, which can be varicella zoster or parvovirus B19 or anything else. So basically it is a short form to tell you about the infections. Then we have to remember two basic things, that in case of transplacental infections, gestational age is directly proportional to risk of transmission. That is, as the gestational age increases, the risk of transmission will increase. This is in view of developing uteroplacental circulation. As the circulation will decrease, more viruses will get transmitted, so the risk of transmission is directly proportional to gestational age. And you can see on the table, in the table which is given on the right side, as you can see the trimesters are increasing, that is first, second, third. Risk of transmission of CMV or toxoplasma or any other infection is increasing in proportion. So you can see in first trimester it is 10%, second May it is 40, third May it is 90. So we can say it is a directly proportional relation. But we have to remember here that rubella doesn't follow this rule, it is an exception, because rubella has 80% transmission ka risk in first trimester, then in second it is 35 approximately, and third it is 90. So it is similar. Just one point, that is rubella has 80%, that is maximum vertical transmission in first trimester. But if they ask you that when rubella has maximum transmission, then you have to say it is third trimester because it is 90%. So the sequence will be third trimester, then first trimester, then second trimester. Then second rule is gestational age is direct inversely proportional to severity of disease. That is, as gestational age will increase, the severity of disease will decrease. And you all know that this is because of the organogenesis ka period. We all know in the initial phase of gestation age, the fetus will be undergoing organogenesis and some basic developments. So if the disease affects that part, the baby will have various congenital anomalies and various syndromes and various manifestations. But after some time, as the baby has developed, and if the baby gets that disease, they won't affect it a lot because the development and organogenesis has already taken place. So earlier the contact, severe the disease. Now let's start with our first infection, that is toxoplasma. First we will discuss the maternal features. You have to remember one thing, that 90% women are asymptomatic and some of them can present with posterior cervical lymphadenopathy. Lymph nodes will be non-tender, discrete and firm, and some of them can have fever, fatigue, lassitude and maculopapular rash. So, if the infection is transmitted to the baby via transplacental route or any other route, the baby will have congenital toxoplasmosis. And you have to remember a triad in that case, that is cerebral calcification, hydrocephalus, and chorioretinitis. You have to remember one thing, that cerebral calcifications in this case of toxoplasmosis, they are going to be discrete and scattered. They will be scattered all over the parenchyma. You can see that in the image I am trying to show you there. Then you have to, for remembering this, you have to remember one thing, you have to remember the sequence. First of all, you have to remember that there are calcifications and those calcifications lead to hydrocephalus because they block the pathway of cerebral fluid or anything, CSF. Then those that obstructed pathway results in hydrocephalus because the CSF remains stagnant. Then because of hydrocephalus there is increased pressure, and because of that back pressure there is a damage to retina or choroid. So this is just a sequence. I'm not saying this is the development of features or presentation. I'm just saying the sequence to remember these things. First of all, there are cerebral calcification, then there is hydrocephalus, and there is chorioretinitis. So remember this, you can also remember that toxoplasma, it has double O. So you can see I am showing that in the image. O results O, that is a big circle, and it results in a bigger circle because of hydrocephalus. So you have to remember that toxoplasma is related to hydrocephalus, because sometimes they give this history of hydrocephalus and seizures in the question, and you have to pick those words. You also remember one point, that the toxoplasma is the cause of highest intracranial calcification, and those intracranial calcifications can be in choroid plexus, deep gray nuclei, or subependyma. Anyway, just note that it is discrete and scattered, because there is some another case where you will find calcifications, but the shape will be different. I'll tell you later. Now you have to note the point that in case of toxoplasmosis, the cat is the definitive host. Okay. See, again, I am trying to show you images. Remember, toxo के लिए O results in O indicates bigger circle, that is your hydrocephalus. So if you start from the calcifications on the right side, you can see discrete. They are spread, they are scattered all over the parenchyma. So discrete cerebral calcifications, those white spots. Then that leads to obstruction, it results in hydrocephalus. You can see bigger O, and back pressure say there is a damage to retina and choroid, so you can see chorioretinitis. So this is a triad of toxoplasmosis. All right. Now second, that is CMV, cytomegalovirus. In case of cytomegalovirus, maternal features, again you have to note the infection will usually be symptomatic. Mothers are usually unaware of the infection, and if they have some features, those will be unspecific, like malaise, fever, generalized lymphadenopathy, hepatosplenomegaly, etc. Now, if the baby gets CMV infection, you have to remember CMV stands for C. So C indicates C-shaped intracranial calcifications, that is periventricular. As we saw in toxoplasma, it was discrete. You can remember discrete ka T is toxoplasma, and here CMV ka C is indicating periventricular. You can see that in the image, and you have to note that it is confluent calcification. It won't be scattered like they were there in toxoplasmosis. Now one more point, you can see I am making C say those cartoon ka ears, so it indicates deafness. I have crossed those C, so it indicates ki deafness. CMV is the CMV का most common long-term associated sequelae is deafness, and it is also the most common cause of non-syndromic hearing loss. You have to remember two extra points. These are not related to transplacental infection. I just found out, so I am just sharing. CMV is the most common infection related to transplantation, and in case of CMV, the CMV will show owl eye inclusion bodies. So you can also remember I am showing those owl eyes with the C in that image, so you can remember that owl eye inclusion bodies are seen in CMV. Then for culture, you have to take urine or saliva. So urine and saliva are the best specimens for CMV. Again note CMV के लिए C indicates cytomegalovirus. You can see the C-shaped or periventricular calcifications in that image, radiological image. They are in the shape of C. And for that deafness, I am showing that ear with letter C. So C indicates deafness, and SNHL, that will be sensory neural hearing loss. So C-shaped calcification, and C say ear say deafness. Now third infection, that is rubella. In case of maternal infection, the mother will have rash, she'll have malaise, fever, lymphadenopathy, polyarthritis. So again it's similar presentation, nothing specific. But now if the baby gets rubella infection, you have to remember some points regarding this. When the rubella is transmitted in first trimester, that results in congenital rubella syndrome, because that will be the period of organogenesis, and if rubella affects that, the baby will have various congenital anomalies. And in case of second trimester, it is not that severe. One third cases will have deafness, but no congenital anomalies as such. And in case of third trimester, majority babies will be normal. So again, as we had discussed about the severity and trimester का rule, it is again that कि जितना ज़्यादा gestation age रहेगा उतना severity कम है. And again you have to note, in case of second trimester, it is not affecting heart and lungs because the development has already taken place, and only affected area will be ears, that is deafness. In case of rubella, you have to remember there is a triad, that is Gregg's triad. It consists of congenital heart disease, congenital cataract, deafness, and it will also have some specific findings which I'll tell you after some time. Now, to remember the features of neonatal rubella infection, that is congenital rubella syndrome, I'll tell you a story and you have to follow the characters as I'll show you. In first image, you can see there is a girl whose name is Ruby, and there is a boy whose name is Gregg, and he is holding hands with another girl. So the story is like there is a girl named Ruby and she had a boyfriend whose name was Gregg. But one day she sees Gregg doing public display of affection, that is PDA, with someone else, and this breaks her heart, and she is heartbroken and everything, and she goes in the corner and she starts crying, and because of that crying, she loses the lens का color, her lens becomes white, and इतना रोती है कि उतना रोना सुन सुन के she becomes deaf. So it is like Ruby is a girl which is heartbroken with white lenses, and she heard her crying for a long time that she became deaf. Okay. So with this story, you can remember the triad, that is in congenital rubella syndrome. Ruby say you have to remember rubella, and the triad is Gregg's triad. Her boyfriend का नाम was Gregg, so rubella has Gregg's triad. Gregg's triad consists of three things. First is congenital heart diseases, the second is deafness, that is SNHL, and third is congenital cataract. As we saw, they were the Gregg and her girlfriend was doing some PDA, so that is patent ductus arteriosus. So PDA is the most common congenital heart disease related to rubella. Second, she Ruby cried and उसका crying सुन के she got deaf. So second feature is deafness, and third उसके lens का color उड़ गया, उसका lens became white, so it is congenital cataract. So you know the three findings. First is congenital heart disease or PDA, second is deafness or SNHL, and third is congenital cataract. And now it's time for additional features of rubella syndrome. You can see that she was heartbroken, so she decides to go to the dessert shop and she decides to buy four blueberry muffins. And that in that dessert shop, she finds a salt and pepper ka box. So now you have to remember these additional features like 4 say you have to remember Forsheimer spots. Blueberry muffin say you have to remember blueberry muffin rash, and salt and pepper say you have to remember salt and pepper fungus. Basically, Forsheimer spots are nothing but some discrete red colored spots on soft palate, and they may coalesce into a red blush and extend over the fauces, and it is seen in rubella. Again, blueberry muffin rash. Blueberry muffin rash is nothing but dermal angiogenesis, and it is not pathognomic of rubella syndrome. These are seen in some other infections as well. But if they ask you in question, you have to take it as a clue for rubella syndrome. And salt and pepper fundus, again, it is not a pathognomic, but it is generally seen in rubella syndrome. So Forsheimer spots, four blueberry muffins, Forsheimer spots, blueberry muffin rash, and salt and pepper ka dabba is salt and pepper fungus. So these were some additional features about rubella syndrome. Now it's a time for fourth infection, that is chickenpox, that is varicella zoster. You all know chickenpox is transmitted by varicella zoster virus, that is human herpes virus 3. And in case of chickenpox, if the infection is in first some months, that is it's specifically within 13 to 20 weeks, it results in congenital varicella syndrome, and that is the highest risk of transmission. In that 13 to 20 weeks is the highest risk of transmission. If the baby has congenital varicella syndrome, the baby will have limb hypoplasia and cicatrization of limb, and baby will also have some other features like cortical atrophy, optic nerve atrophy, chorioretinitis, cataract, microcephaly, low birth weight, IUGR, and rash. But more specifically, if they give you image based question or they give you some words indicating the chickenpox infection, it will be limb hypoplasia and cicatrization of limb. Now I'll give you a mnemonic to remember this. So to remember these findings, remember a story of a girl whose name was Barry. So she goes to sell her chickens, but the chickens get very furious. They start attacking her and they attack her limbs and everything, and she gets injured and she gets scarring all over her feet. So chicken is chicken pox and scarring is cicatrization of limbs and it results in shortening of limbs, that is hypoplasia. So you can see in the first image that congenital varicella syndrome, the baby is showing the classical cicatrization, that is zigzag shaped scarring over dermatomal zones, and you can see the in the next image you can see the reduced limb, that is some muscle hypoplasia and bone hypoplasia. So these both findings are specifically to congenital varicella syndrome, chicken pox, chicken attack the girl varicella, and scarring, so limb reduction. So these are the findings in congenital varicella syndrome. So now fifth infection, that is parvovirus B19. You have to remember two specific points, that if parvovirus B19 affects pregnant female, the pregnant female through it is transmitted to baby and it affects fetal RBCs in spleen, bone marrow, kidney, and it results in erythrolysis, and this eventually results in hydrops fetalis. It's a very important question, they have asked it multiple times. So please remember parvovirus B19 is related to hydrops fetalis, and if the parvovirus B19 infects a child, that is some adult child, not neonate or no transplacental infection, the infection is called as erythema infectiosum and the or fifth disease, and the baby will have slapped cheek appearance. This is some pediatric question. I'm just telling you in this reference. So in this case, see the images, see the left image. If the intrauterine infection by parvovirus B19, then the baby will have erythrolysis and baby will be hydrops fetalis. That hydrops is water, so the baby will look like a bloated one. And in case of child gets infection, then see the right image. You are seeing the red cheek and everything. So it shows slapped cheek appearance. The rash will be on the cheek and face and everything will be red, so it will look like someone has slapped the baby. So it is slapped cheek appearance. So the intrauterine infection will result in hydrops, and a child gets infection, then he'll have slapped cheek appearance. So these two things are related to parvovirus B19. Now it's a time for sixth infection, that is syphilis. In syphilis, you have to remember two things, that if the baby or the baby gets the infection or it is manifested within first 2 years of life, it is known as early syphilis. And in case of if the baby gets the infection or it is manifested after 2 years of life, then it is known as late syphilis. And the symptoms are different in both of them. So in case of early syphilis, you have to remember it is mostly mucocutaneous symptoms, or these are related to skin and bones, and the baby will have snuffles, that is mucocutaneous rhinitis, osteochondritis, periostitis, pseudoparalysis of Parrot, renal lesion, autoimmune anemia. And in case of late syphilis, the triad is known as Hutchinson triad. We'll discuss it shortly. So let's see first findings of early syphilis. On left side you can see a baby showing some discharge through his nose and some reddish lesions on his angle of mouth. So basically that discharge is known as snuffles, that is basically rhinitis. And in case of that angular lesion, that is some crack or fissure type lesion on his angle of mouth, that is known as Raget's. So these are findings of early syphilis. Raget's can be seen in late syphilis as well, but specifically snuffles and these things are related to early syphilis. Then the right image is showing you a pseudoparalysis. Note image a baby, and compare it with image B. You can see baby is moving her left arm, but she is not moving her right arm. So basically this is due to osteochondritis of epiphysis. The limbs are painful and hence the baby won't move the limb. You can note, you can get the complaint from the mother as well, that baby is not moving this specific like that. So this is basically pseudo paralysis. Pseudo because it is not an actual paralysis. The baby is not moving, not and the baby is not moving the limb because it is painful. So this is pseudo paralysis of Parrot. So snuffles, Raget's, and pseudo paralysis of Parrot and the other lesions were related to early syphilis. Now to remember a triad of late syphilis, I am going to tell you a mnemonic. To remember this, you have to remember Gandhiji ke teen bandar related to Hutchinson triad. To remember this, you can also remember that Gandhiji used to follow the simple lifestyle. So he used to live in a hut with his son, that is Hutchinson. So basically, you can remember it like anything. I'm just telling you to remember Hutchinson's triad. It related to is related to Gandhiji ka bandar. So as Gandhiji ke bandar, one is covering the eyes, one is covering the ears, and one is covering the mouth. These actions indicate three specific points. First is showing first is hiding his eyes, so it is showing interstitial keratitis. Second one is covering his ears, so it is showing sensory neural deafness. And third is covering his mouth, so basically it is showing Hutchinson teeth. So eyes say interstitial keratitis, ears say it is deafness, and mouth said it is teeth. So that was the mnemonic. Now we will see the actual finding. First image is showing you Hutchinson teeth, and those are basically some notched upper incisors, and those are known as Hutchinson teeth. Second image is showing deafness, that is sensory neural hearing loss, and third image is showing you your interstitial keratitis. So interstitial keratitis, Hutchinson incisors, and eighth nerve deafness are the findings of late syphilis, and this is known as Hutchinson triad. Now let's see some additional features of lead syphilis. Let's go one by one. In first image you can see the depressed nasal bridge, and it is known as saddle nose. Again, it is not a pathognomic of syphilis, but it is seen in syphilis. Now the lower image is showing you mulberry molar. Mulberry molars are nothing but some permanent molars with multiple rounded rudimentary enamel cusps. So you can see like multiple small things are there. So that is mulberry molar. Now third image is showing you Olympian brow. Olympian brow is nothing but frontal bossing. And fourth is known as Higumenaki sign. It is basically nothing but the enlargement of sternal end of clavicle. So these are some additional features: saddle nose, Olympian's brow, mulberry molar, Higumenaki sign. There are many others, but these are some important ones, and you can get an image based question on this. So I am focusing on them. These are some additional features of late syphilis. So now we have covered the infections, and we saw some eye findings somewhere in our video. We saw some deafness. So now let's revise them and let's keep them at one place. So in case of eye findings, in case of toxoplasma, we have chorioretinitis, and we had remembered chorioretinitis in a sequence like calcification led to hydrocephalus, hydrocephalus led to back pressure led to damage to retina and choroid. So this is chorioretinitis in toxoplasma. In case of rubella, we had remembered the Ruby cried a lot and she lost the color of her lenses became white. So congenital cataract in rubella, and she had gone to muffin shop and she saw salt and pepper ka bottles there, so salt and pepper fundus. So rubella has congenital cataract and salt and pepper fundus. In case of late syphilis, we had seen कि we had remembered the triad with Gandhiji ke bandar, and now late syphilis has interstitial keratitis. Keratitis as in cornea. So you can remember कि Gandhiji used to stay in the front, that वो हमेशा सामने रहते थे, तो सामने is cornea. So syphilis has keratitis, that is interstitial keratitis. They might confuse you with these options interchanging with everything, so you have to remember specific eye findings related to specific diseases. In case of deafness, there were teen diseases which had deafness. First is CMV. Remember that C I had shown you. Rubella. Ruby had cried a lot, and she heard her crying, and she herself got deaf. Rubella and late syphilis. Gandhiji ka third bandar, which was covering her ears, which was covering his ears. So late syphilis. So CMV, rubella, and late syphilis have deafness. Now, one more important point I want to tell you. In case of diagnosis, if they ask you how will you diagnose the infection, so your answer is going to be PCR, because it will be a proper method to diagnose the infection and the results will be accurate and everything. But if they ask you about antibodies based diagnosis, if IgM or IgG, so you have to know one concept. You know that IgM is a big molecule and it can't pass through the placenta, and IgG में IgG2 type छोड़ के बाकी all IgGs can pass the placenta and they can go to the baby. So in case of infection, if you find IgM antibodies in a baby, so they are indicative of the infection baby is facing, that is the baby is infected, because IgM anyway can't come through mother, but IgG if you get in baby, you will be confused ki are they from baby or they are they from the mother. So IgM is the definitive diagnostic method for infection in baby. IgG can't be diagnostic because IgG are going to stay there in the body of fetus till 6 months of life postnatal. So if you get IgG, that is persistent IgG after 6 months, that is 6 months to 9 months ke period mein if you get IgG, then they can suggest the infection, because now you know that the IgG are not from mother, because ideally they will vanish till 6 months of life. And again you have to note one point, that in case of HIV infection the baby won't have these antibodies because the baby will have immunosuppressed. Baby will have low immunity and she will be immunosuppressed. So basically, take home message is IgM is the diagnostic criteria of any neonatal sorry, not neonatal, transplacental infection. Now that was all about the torch and transplacental infections. I have tried to cover all the important images, all the important findings. I think my mnemonics and stories will be easy to remember, to make you remember the things, and there will be no any confusion. So now I have to end this video. I want to end this video on a note saying our greatest glory is not in never falling, but it is in rising every time we fall. So I won't explain anything. We all are wise enough to understand the meaning. So, okay, take care. Watch this video once again if you feel like revising. You can watch it on 2x speed. You can make your own notes or you can take some screenshots. Please watch those and revise those images once again, because those are some high yielding images and you can get some image based question on those images. So that's all for today. Thank you. Keep pushing.